The sun burned softly through the stained glass windows of St. Andrew's Church, splashing colors across the polished floor. The scent of lilies and roses filled the air, and laughter echoed faintly through the hall. I stood at the back, dressed in my best suit, holding a small velvet box that contained a silver bracelet, the same one my late wife had worn on our wedding day. My hands trembled slightly as I looked toward the altar where my daughter, Clara, was to be married. It had been 5 years since she last spoke to me properly. After her mother died, our bond broke apart like fragile glass. I had made mistakes, too many arguments, too many nights drowned in whiskey and regret. I wasn't there when she needed me most. But today, I thought, maybe I could make it right. I had received the invitation indirectly, from my sister, who whispered over the phone that Clara was getting married. No formal card, no message, but I couldn't stay away. A father doesn't just disappear from his daughter's life forever. As I took my first steps into the church, people turned to look at me. Some faces softened, others turned away. I saw my ex-brother-in-law whisper to someone, his eyes darting toward me. I ignored the murmurs, keeping my eyes fixed on the bride at the front. Clara was radiant in white lace, her hair coiled elegantly, her eyes glistening beneath the veil. My chest tightened. She looked so much like her mother. Before I could reach the front row, Clara turned. Her smile vanished. Her expression froze, replaced by a cold, sharp edge. Her groom, Daniel, looked confused, glancing between us. The music stopped abruptly. The murmur in the crowd deepened into uneasy silence. "Dad," she said, her voice low, almost trembling. I smiled weakly, clutching the box. I just wanted to see you, sweetheart. To give you something. Her lips quivered, but not with emotion. With anger. "You shouldn't be here." I stopped. "Clara, please, Her voice rose, cutting through the air. "You're not invited, Dad." "Go away." Gasps erupted from the crowd. My heart dropped. My hands shook, the bracelet slipping from my fingers and falling to the floor with a faint metallic clink. The sound echoed in my ears like thunder. "Clara," I whispered, "please, don't do this here." Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the kind I hoped for. "You've done enough," she said bitterly. "You had your chance. You weren't there when Mom died. You weren't there for me. You don't get to show up now." The world spun. Every word was a knife twisting in my chest. I wanted to tell her the truth. How losing her mother broke me, how guilt and grief swallowed me whole, how every day I regretted it. But the words wouldn't come. Daniel stepped forward gently, trying to calm her. "Clara, maybe he just." "No," she snapped. "He needs to leave." I looked around. Guests avoided my gaze, pretending not to see my humiliation. My sister tried to stand, but I shook my head. Slowly, I bent down, picked up the bracelet, and turned toward the door. My legs felt like stone. Each step echoed in the hollow church. My heart screamed for her, but my pride, or maybe my shame, kept me silent. I reached the door, glanced back one last time, and saw her crying in Daniel's arms. For a second, I thought I saw hesitation in her eyes, but then she turned away. The doors closed behind me, shutting me out completely. Outside, the world seemed cruelly beautiful. The bells began to ring, announcing a joy I wasn't part of. I sat on the church steps, staring at the bracelet in my palm. My throat burned. I wanted to throw it away, but I couldn't. It was all that was left of my family, the last symbol of the life I had destroyed. I stayed there until the music faded. The guests poured out, laughing, smiling, oblivious. I kept my head down, but one woman stopped. It was my sister, Anne. Her eyes were red. "She didn't mean it," she said quietly. "Yes, she did," I replied. "And maybe she's right too." Anne sighed. "She's angry, not heartless. Give her time." "Time," I said bitterly. "I've already lost years." She hesitated, then reached into her purse and handed me a folded piece of paper. "She wrote this weeks ago. I think she meant to send it. Maybe you should read it." Before I could ask, she walked away, leaving me alone with the letter. I unfolded it slowly, my fingers trembling. Inside, in her delicate handwriting, were only a few words. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I still wish you were here." The tears came then, uncontrollable, raw, years of pain spilling down my face. I pressed the bracelet to my chest and whispered into the cold air, "I am here, Clara." I never stopped being here. But she was gone, walking into a new life, while I sat outside the walls of her happiness, the father she once loved, now just a shadow at her wedding. The night after the wedding, I sat alone in my small apartment, staring at the untouched slice of cake Anne had slipped into my hand before she left. The frosting had melted slightly, a perfect metaphor for everything in my life, once sweet, now ruined by time and neglect. The letter she gave me lay open on the table beside an old photo of Clara and me at the park, back when she was 5, her tiny hand gripping my fingers as if she'd never let go. I hadn't stopped thinking about her words. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I still wish you were here. Those lines tore through me again and again. She did want me there, deep down. But I'd given her every reason not to. I poured myself a glass of water and looked out the window at the dim city lights. My reflection stared back, a tired man in his 50s, unshaven, eyes hollow from years of guilt. I had been sober for nearly 2 years, but the damage from my drinking years had left its scars. When her mother died, I lost myself. Instead of being the father Clara needed, I drowned in my pain and pushed her away with every bottle I emptied. I couldn't let the story end like that, not with her screaming at me in front of strangers. I had to try again, not for forgiveness, but for closure. 2 days later, I drove to the house where Clara and Daniel lived. I'd found the address through Anne, who warned me softly, "Don't push her. Just talk." When I arrived, the front yard was still littered with white petals from the wedding. The "just married" sign hung crookedly on the fence. My heart raced as I climbed the steps and rang the doorbell. Daniel opened the door. His eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Lawson," he said cautiously, "I didn't expect to see you." "I just need 5 minutes," I said quietly. "Then I'll leave." He hesitated, then nodded and stepped aside. "She's upstairs. I'll call her." The living room smelled faintly of coffee and flowers. Family photos lined the mantel, but none of them included me. I noticed one from her graduation. She had worn the same necklace her mother gave her. A lump formed in my throat. A minute later, Clara came down the stairs, her hair tied loosely, wearing a simple sweater. Her eyes were tired, but the anger from the wedding had softened into something else, caution, maybe. "Dad," she said flatly, stopping a few feet away. "Why are you here?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out the velvet box. "To give you this. It's your mother's bracelet. I thought you should have it." She stared at it, her expression unreadable. "You should have given it to me years ago." "I wasn't the man I should have been years ago," I admitted. "But I'm trying now." Her lips tightened. "You think one gesture fixes everything? You missed Mom's funeral. You didn't answer my calls for months. You left me alone." "I know." My voice cracked. I hated myself for it. "I thought you'd be better off without me. But every day since, I've wished I'd been stronger." Her eyes shimmered, but she blinked it away. "You always say sorry, but it doesn't change what happened." I nodded slowly. "You're right. It doesn't. I can't erase it. I can only tell you the truth. I was broken, Clara. Losing your mother broke me in ways I didn't know how to fix. I thought the pain would kill me, and instead, it just killed everything I loved." Silence fell between us. Daniel quietly retreated to the kitchen, giving us space. Clara's voice softened. "Do you know how many birthdays I waited for you to show up? How many times I wished you'd call?" My chest tightened. Every single one of those days, I thought about calling. But I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see what I'd become. Tears rolled down her cheeks now. "You don't get to decide that. You were my dad. I needed you." Her words shattered me completely. I stepped closer but didn't reach out. "You're right. I failed you. And I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know I never stopped loving you, even when I didn't deserve to." She looked at me then, really looked. The fury in her eyes dimmed, replaced by confusion and sorrow. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to run into my arms when she scraped her knee. "Why now?" she whispered. "After everything." "Because I realized there's no later left to wait for," I said. "I came to your wedding to see you happy, to see the woman your mother always wanted you to be. But when you told me to leave, I understood. I just couldn't walk away without saying goodbye properly." Clara's hand trembled as she reached for the bracelet. She took it, hesitating, then opened the box. The silver gleamed softly. "Mom wore this the day you married her." I nodded, smiling faintly. "She said she'd give it to you someday. I guess it's finally time." Clara's tears fell onto the bracelet. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a fragile whisper, "I miss her every day." "So do I said, my voice barely a whisper. She looked up, her expression torn between anger and aching tenderness. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Dad. Not yet. You don't have to, I replied. Just don't hate me forever. Her lip quivered, and she turned away, clutching the bracelet tightly. I need time. I smiled sadly. Take all the time you need. Then I turned to leave. As I stepped onto the porch, the cold wind brushed against my face. Behind me, I heard her voice, soft, almost uncertain. Dad, wait. I froze, my heart pounding, afraid to turn around. I didn't mean to humiliate you, she said. At the wedding, I turned slowly. Her eyes met mine, full of regret. I know, I said gently. And for the first time in years, we shared a quiet, fragile silence that didn't hurt as much as before. Weeks passed after that fragile meeting. I didn't expect a call, a letter, or even forgiveness. I had said what I needed to say, and I thought that was the end. But healing, I learned, doesn't always arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes, it sneaks in through the smallest cracks of hope. Every morning, I walked to the park where Clara and I used to feed the ducks. It became my ritual, the place I went to feel close to her mother, to remember the man I once was before I lost everything. I carried the same paper cup of seeds, though the ducks had long since learned I came alone. One cold Saturday morning, as fog rolled lazily across the lake, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Still feeding the ducks, Dad? I froze. That soft, uncertain tone, I'd know it anywhere. Slowly, I turned around. Clara stood a few feet away, hands tucked into her coat pockets, her hair tied back, her eyes softer than I remembered. For a moment, words failed me. You came. She gave a small shrug, looking down. Daniel said you might be here. I wanted to talk. I motioned to the bench beside me. Please. We sat in silence for a while, watching the water ripple. She glanced at the cup in my hand and smiled faintly. You still do this? Every week, I said. Your mom loved it here. I guess I wanted to keep a part of her alive somehow. She nodded slowly. I wear the bracelet now, she said, lifting her sleeve just enough for me to see the glint of silver. The sight of it made my throat tighten. It suits you, I whispered. She looked out at the lake again, her voice trembling. I've been thinking about everything. About you. About Mom. About that night I told you to go away. I swallowed hard, staring at the water. You were right to. She shook her head slightly. Maybe. But seeing you walk out, it didn't make me feel better. It just made me feel emptier. Her words hit me like a quiet storm, not violent, but deep enough to stir everything I'd been holding down. Clara, I said softly, I spent years convincing myself that you hated me, because that was easier than facing what I'd done. But you were never the one who left. I did. She blinked back tears. I was angry for so long. Every time I saw another father walking his daughter down the aisle or helping her move into a new house, I felt that hole again. I wanted to forgive you, but every memory of you drunk, every fight, every missed call, it just wouldn't go away. I understand, I said. Forgiveness isn't something you owe me. It's something you deserve to give yourself when you're ready. The wind rustled the trees, scattering leaves across the ground. She took a deep breath, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Mom wrote this before she died. I found it again after you left the wedding. She handed it to me. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The paper was yellowed with age, the handwriting unmistakably hers, elegant and full of life. If you're reading this, then maybe we're not together anymore. But promise me something. Don't let grief turn you into a ghost. Be there for Clara. Even if she pushes you away, keep showing up. She'll need you, and you'll need her more than you know. The words blurred through my tears. I pressed the letter to my chest. She always knew what to say, I murmured. Clara's eyes shimmered. I didn't understand until now. She knew you'd come back someday. I almost didn't, I admitted. But something in me, maybe her voice, wouldn't let me give up. For the first time in years, Clara smiled, not the polite kind, but the one that reached her eyes. I'm glad you didn't. We sat there, the silence no longer heavy but healing. The sun broke through the fog, scattering gold across the lake. A duck waddled closer, pecking at my shoes, and Clara laughed, a sound I hadn't heard since she was a child. Do you want to feed them? I asked. She nodded, taking a handful of seeds from the cup. As she tossed them gently into the water, she said quietly, I can't promise everything will be okay overnight. But maybe we can start trying. I looked at her, pride and relief swelling inside me. That's all I ever wanted. She smiled faintly. You know, Daniel said he felt bad about how things went at the wedding. He wanted to invite you to dinner next week. Just us. My heart stumbled. Dinner. She nodded. It's not much. But it's a start. I laughed softly, feeling something warm break open inside me, hope. I'd like that. The afternoon. Sun painted the sky orange as we sat together, father and daughter, two broken souls trying to piece back what time had stolen. Before she left, Clara hugged me. It wasn't long or tight, but it was real. I felt her heartbeat against mine, steady and alive, and in that embrace, I found a forgiveness words could never capture. As she walked away, I stayed on the bench, watching her fade into the sunlight, a woman stronger than I ever deserved, yet somehow still willing to let me back in. I looked up at the sky and whispered to the woman I'd lost years ago, "You were right, love." She needed me, but I needed her even more. The ducks quacked as if answering, and I smiled through my tears. The world felt lighter again. That day, I didn't leave the park as the same man who came. I left as a father, imperfect, forgiven, and finally found again.